The Centurion Action X is one of the best medium tanks at tier 10 in World of Tanks, but does that mean that it's worth your time and effort to go all the way down the line and grind it? Since for the month of August this tank is going to be top of the tree, I thought that I would go down and tell you everything you need to know about the line and whether or not you should maybe consider going down it. And as always, we are starting at tier 1 with the Cruiser Mark 1. Now, you may not spend a lot of time at this tier, and you may not even get to play this tank because it's tier 1, and nobody really plays it at all anyway. The only time that you probably play this is when you're doing the introductory sessions and going through the tutorials. But either way, this is an interesting tank actually at tier 1 because it does get this pom-pom gun, which has 4 shells in the magazine. It loads extremely fast between shots, and then you load again in 11 seconds. Now, the reason why it fires extremely fast in between shots is because you actually get 2 shells in the magazine, but you have 4 total shells, which means that each time that you press the button, you'll actually fire 2 shells, one after the other, well, in 0.63 seconds between the 2 shells. And that is instantly. So you click once, it will fire 2 shells. You can't interrupt that other shell. So you'll fire 4 shells in a clip, but you'll only be actually pressing the button twice. So actually an interesting tank, a unique feature of some of the tanks in the British line that they get this gun. Although I do believe maybe some other tanks have a similar kind of style of interclip, but I'm not too sure off the top of my head. But you won't be spending too long at tier 1, so moving on up to tier 2 with the Cruiser Mark 2. And this again is very, very similar to the Cruiser Mark 1. It gets the pom-pom gun, but it's just a little bit more accurate and has a little bit more pen. The exact same kind of thing. It's tier 2. You're not going to be there for too long. You'll fast move up to the tier 3, which is actually going to be the Valentine that you go to. Because the way that this tech tree is, you want to go through the Cruiser, then the Valentine, Matilda, then the Cavalier to get to the Centurion. And speaking about the Valentine, that brings us on to tier 3. So you will then get basically a big change from the tier 1 and the tier 2. The Valentine is more of it's almost like a heavy tank with how slow it is compared to the cruisers or any other medium tank that you get in the game. Now you do gain access to a tier 4 gun, which has, I honestly don't know if that's okay DPM for a tier 3, 900 average DPM, but it seems okay with the rate of fire and gun loading at 5 seconds for 75 alpha. Considering tanks are not going to have that much health, I think that's actually pretty decent. Long aiming time, not very accurate, but to be expected for a tier 3. Now, as I said, this tank feels more like a heavy tank than a medium tank, and that is because this tank actually gets very, very good armor. It basically gets 60 everywhere on the turret, or 65 everywhere on the turret, sorry, and nearly everywhere on the hull is 60 millimeters. So at the front, you get 60. At the sides, you actually go down to 43. But at the rear of this tank, you get 60 as well, which means that you're all round very well armored. So yes, this thing can seal club. It can be a nightmare to deal with if you don't have the pen. And considering that a lot of people that you meet are going to be grinding their way through, it's going to be quite annoying when someone meets a Valentine if they don't have above 65 pen at least. And also speaking about the grind, this gets a absolutely stupid amount of engines. You have to go and grind through 3 different engines if you want the top engine on this. And to be honest with you, you don't really gain that much horsepower either when you go to the maximum one. That's a difference of 135 horsepower to then 165. And that's a lot of engines. However, if you didn't even want to bother spending time grinding this, you could just go right ahead, get the turret, and then move yourself on to Matilda, which is at tier 4. Now, the Matilda is one of the greatest tier 4 medium tanks in the game because it has an insanely good gun. Well, it actually kind of has insanely good guns, plural, because depending on who you ask, they will say you should use the howitzer on this thing and just troll a lot of people because it is quite funny when this thing hits and does a lot of damage. Especially if you fired heat, you have 100 pen with 110 alpha. And although it's not the highest of alpha, it's still kind of funny. But realistically, you should be using the top gun, which is this 2-pounder Mark XB. This thing has 55 alpha, but 121 pen or 145 if you're using premium, which is very, very high. Combine that with 1,500 DPM, you are looking at a DPM machine. And of course, this thing is well armored as well, even more so than the Valentine at tier 3. This gets near enough 75mm of armor everywhere on the tank. On the turret, it is 75 everywhere. On the front of the tank, it is 75 for the hull, it's 70 at the sides, and 55 at the rear. So if you do get around the side of it, yes, you can pen it, so long as you have over 50 pen, which at tier 4 is a little bit more common. Tier 3, not so much with that, 75 on the turret especially. But again, just like the Valentine, it is a very, very nice tank, and you can seal club in it. It is very funny with the howitzer, watching your shells just go over because they have insanely slow shell velocity. So if you want to mess around with that, you can. It's kind of funny. But overall, this tank is really, really solid. And so far, honestly, in the entire line, the tier 1, tier 2 doesn't really matter. They're funny with the pom-pom guns. But then once you get into the Valentine and then the Matilda, these two are where the line starts to shine. And you could quite happily, if you do enjoy low tier, just play these two and have a lot of fun in the game. But we then move on to the Cavalier at tier 5. And this tank actually gets some weird choices of guns, because Gon is the slow, lots of armor, medium style tank that is more like a heavy tank than a medium tank, if we're honest. And now we are truly in mediums. And from here on out, it is medium tanks. This is pure medium tanks territory right now. From tier 5 all the way up to tier 10, you will get used to the playstyle and it doesn't change, which is one of the best things about this line. From very, very early on, you start to learn how to play the vehicles, and they don't change as you progress up. All that changes really is some of the tactics as you move up into higher tiers, because it will change. But the base vehicles, you should be able to do pretty much exactly the same thing with each one of them, just with slightly different, interactions here and there. But this thing does definitely get very weird guns, because this gun, which is the tier 5 quickfire 6-pounder right here, and then the 75mm Mark 5 gun, do you notice something? It's like they've swapped almost. It's like the alpha damage swaps with the damage, the alpha damage swaps with the penetration for the 75mm one compared to the 6-pounder, which, it just feels a bit weird to me. So would you like more DPM? If so, go for the 75mm gun. It has more alpha, and although it has a slower reload time, it has more DPM overall. It also has a much nicer aim time if that's something that you really care about, although it is only 0.4 difference. So it's not really going to be that noticeable. But if you wanted something that has a lot more pen, and if you are free to play, for example, and you don't want to keep spamming gold, then maybe this is a little bit better for you. Obviously, this one having 110 penetration with only 75 alpha, it can be a little bit annoying having this little alpha damage, I won't lie, but overall, it should be okay. It really just depends on who you are as a player. And obviously, it being tier 5, the grind is not too bad. If you want to go and grab the engine, for example, that's only 1,000 XP, and the track's 1,900, so on and so forth. I would make sure that you go ahead and get the radio, because the radios are super useful at lower tier. Having very bad signal range is not ideal, because you can't see what your team's doing across the map, and at tier 5 it's really annoying, or just in general actually, it's really annoying not having the signal range. And another reason for getting this radio is that it is on the Cromwell, so you get this, you then skip this little bit of the grind early on. And also, from what we've done in our last video for is the grind worth it, I'm going to rate every single tank from tier 5 up. So what would I rate this tank out of 10? Well, I'd probably give it out of 7, because it is very, very nice, although it does have one of the lowest mark requirements, but I think that's just because people don't really understand it. The problem is that this tank can die very, very quickly. In fact, all of these tanks can die very, very quickly if you don't know what you're doing in them. It's a very steep learning curve, but I think that if you learn it from tier 5 and then move up, it's a lot nicer to play. So I still think 7 out of 10 for this tank. It teaches you a lot. And speaking about the Cromwell, one of the more well-known tanks in the game and in real life as well, this thing is very nice. It will teach you a lot in the game. The Cavalier will teach you a lot, but this one, it goes fast. It has not really any armor, but sometimes you might be able to bounce something. As you can see, 75 at the front. Sometimes you'll find something that will bounce it, but it's really rare. You have minus 13 degrees of gun depression. You don't have armor, as we've already said, but you have a very, very nice selection of guns that you can grind up. Although it is one of the really annoying grinds because look how much stuff you have to go through to get the Comet. But once you do get the top gun, you are then greeted with something that is beautiful. You have more than enough DPM. The accuracy is pretty decent, actually, for a tier 6. You have 135 damage, 145 standard pen, and 202 premium pen, which means that no matter what you really face, you should be able to pen it. Actually, it can meet a BZ176. I forgot about that. It can't pen that. Not many things can. And to give the Cromwell a rating out of 10, I'm going to give this thing an 8. It's a bit better than the Cavalier, or in fact, it's probably a lot better than the Cavalier, but I'd say 8 out of 10. It still has room for improvement. It still will be a little bit squishy at times, and you don't really have the hit points to make up for it. But this tank, mwah. And now moving up to tier 7 with the Comet. And this is where it really starts to show what the tier 10 might feel like. You start to get a more bouncy turret. We have 102 frontal armor, nothing on the sides and rear, obviously, but decent view range, and you can start to go hull down. I believe you have minus 13 again. Yes, minus 13 degrees of gun depression as well, so you can really play that ridgeline. You will also gain access to the 77mm gun, which is 140 alpha damage and 148 standard pen with 208 premium pen. So just a step up from the Cromwell, and now you get 2,150 base DPM. And just as a whole package, this thing is super nice. It might feel a little bit outdated, but with the DPM that it gets and the platform it's on, it's super flexible. And I think that flexibility is one of those things that you need to take into consideration when you look at all of these tanks. The amount of flexibility each one of these tanks has is through the roof compared to other vehicles. Because a lot of other vehicles don't gain that flexibility. This thing, if it needs to go off and do something else, it can go and do that. It's fast enough to do that. If it needs to fight on a ridgeline, even if it's only showing a little bit of its tank at each time and just popping up, taking a shot and then coming back down again, it can do that. It is extremely flexible no matter what the environment is. So this thing, although it may feel out of date in some stages, it's definitely not in my eyes. The one thing that you need to make sure that you're doing is not exposing your hull with any of these tanks, to be honest with you. That you want to be a quick up on the ridgeline, take your shot and back off, like I said. And that is where these tanks excel. Now, the nice thing about this tank is that you only really need to grind these two, and you already have access to this gun right here, which you got from the Cromwell. So you can grind quite happily with this vehicle, with this gun, and just grind your way up. You're going to have to get the tracks first of all, which is going to cost you 9 grand, and then 12,000 for that, and 14,500 for that. So a little bit of a grind, but considering that you get the gun for free, that you can mount straight away, you don't need the tracks to mount the gun, or the turret to mount this gun, you should be okay from the start. So the Comet, I say again, an 8 out of 10. It's not perfect, but it is very, very nice. Then moving up to the Centurion Mark 1, which is at tier 8. And I won't lie to you, it goes a little bit downhill, because this tank, although that it is good, not quite as flexible as the Comet. The reason being is that although you gain a very nice turret, 250 armor at the front, it's got a few weak spots. And when I say a few weak spots, I mean basically the entire bit here, because you can get shot right into this bit and right into this bit, and it's only 230 millimeters thick. So if you come up against someone who has APCR of about 230, they'll probably pen you straight through the turret. And obviously, this being a tier 8, you could meet tier 10s, and they are definitely going straight through you, no matter what you do. So it's a little bit annoying in that respect, but overall, it's a solid turret for the below tiers. And I mean, sometimes even in your own tier, you will be able to bounce stuff off that turret. But if they do start loading premium, a lot of tanks do have around about 250 APCR, so they will go straight through that. However, maybe if they low roll, they won't pen. But yeah, the turret on this thing is a little bit annoying, to say the least. You do have a cupola, although it is very small. It's just really annoying that right inside the gun mantlet, there's just that weak spot there. However, you get a very nice gun on the Centurion 1. You have 226 standard pen, 258 premium pen, which is APCR, so if you do meet yourself, you can go and use that against its gun mantlet. And you have 230 alpha. HE on this vehicle, completely useless. I wouldn't bother loading hardly any of it. Maybe 2 for decapping stuff, maybe, I don't know. Or just destroying some trees. But the HE is actually pathetic on this tank. Decent base DPM and 0.33 dispersion at 100 meters, which is very nice. And finally, given the Centurion Mark 1 a rating, I'm probably going to give it about a 7 out of 10, because it isn't as flexible as, say, the Comet or the Cromwell. It's not as fast, and this thing feels a little bit sluggish, because even with the maxed out engine, you're going to only get around about 17 pound to weight. Whereas with the stock engine on the Comet, as you can see here, you are getting 19.66. So this thing, it does feel a little bit of a step down, as I said, compared to the Comet with flexibility. So I'd say 7 out of 10. What's a step up, though, is this thing, the Centurion 7.1. What a machine this is. Once you get this thing fully maxed out, you get this gun. It has 390 alpha with 268 standard penetration, which is really nice, but really bad at the same time. Because if you do find something that you think, okay, I need a little bit more pen for this, let me go to my premium rounds, you then realize that you don't have any premium rounds that will go up in pen. It actually goes down in pen. Now, some of you may be confused by this, but it is because it is HESH as the premium rounds. And they have 480 average damage with 210 penetration. And this is HESH, or High Explosive Squash Head, which means that it is going to be extremely bad for whatever it pens, and your DPM then goes up when you fire the premium round, although your penetration is going to go down. And to give you an idea of how much it goes up by, if we go ahead and put this into comparison, and then we choose HESH, you go up to 2,600 base DPM. Again, this is without anything. There's no field mods, there's no equipment, there's no consumables or perks. 2.6k base DPM. And obviously with the standard ones, 1,200. Which makes this tank insanely good for free-to-play players, because the standard round is really good, and you definitely don't feel like you need the premium round unless you're fighting super heavies. So it's really nice free-to-play, but also if you really just want to spam the premium round, you can also have some very fun times against other medium tanks, because they don't like 210 HESH. Now, you do unfortunately have the exact same turret, or turret layout, as you do with Centurion 1. So even though that you upgrade the turret later on here, you don't get rid of that 230mm weak spot directly in the gun mantlet, which means that if you do meet another one of these and you're in your Centurion 7.1, you can go ahead and just pen it straight away through there with your standard rounds. It's nearly like 100% chance. So it's really annoying with this turret. You'll get penned there a lot. However, you do get 410 base view range, which is a lot, considering that you're a tier 9, you could outspot a lot of people, especially if you have CVS as well. If you combine CVS with optics on this thing, you could outspot a lot of people on proc as a secondary loadout once you get all the field mods. And now, while you're definitely not super fast like the Comet or the Cromwell, you do go slightly faster than the Centurion 1 with 18 power to weight. Still the same top speed, but a little bit better power to weight. So just all in all, this tank, I mean, look at it as well. It looks good. It's a good looking tank. It's just a very nice all-round package, I would say. You get good accuracy, good DPM. Reload time is a little bit long, but you need to then remember that you're firing 390 alpha and not something that is less. So coming from very quick firing tanks where their reload time's quite low, and then moving up into this, you may take a few games to get used to it, but once you do, it's beautiful. So the rating for this tank, 9 out of 10. This is a lovely tank. This is just a straight 9 out of 10 vehicle. It is very, very nice. And then finally, the Centurion Action 10, the thing that you've been grinding all the way up to get. And I said right at the start, it is one of the best tier 10 tanks or tier 10 medium tanks in the game right now. So let's go ahead and talk about this. Gone is the Hesh gun. You still gain the same 268 standard pain gun. However, you now get rid of the Hesh with 210 premium Hesh and you replace it with a heat round. You have 330 heat with, again, 390 alpha. So back to the same kind of standard conventional gun loading system with the shells. You do still get the HE rounds with 105 HE and 480 alpha, which is really, really nice against softly armored targets. DPM wise is 2,925 base and 0.32 accuracy with a 0.21 aim time. This thing is devastating once you get it fully equipped. As you can see, we have 3,842 DPM and 0.27 accuracy. You get a much better turret than the Centurion 7.1 as well, meaning that you can once again peek the ridgeline without too many worries. You still want to play the same playstyle that you've been playing this whole time, where you peek up, take a few shots, back off. You know, you just play the peekaboo with the ridgeline with people. But this tank will play it really, really well. You do now go faster. You actually have 55 km/h top speed, and because I'm using the field mods, that has actually gone down by 2 km/h because I am then boosting the view range, but we'll speak about field mods later on in a second. You get lots of hit points, and just overall, it's a complete package of a medium tank. You have bouncy armor, hull armor, absolutely not bouncy at all, but the turret armor is nice. Mobility, amazing gun. Just the main 3 pillars of a tank, which is obviously survivability, mobility, and then firepower. All of them are built into this. For equipment on this vehicle, I am using Vance Rammer Stab. However, you can choose whatever you really like. You could be HP Turbo Rammer, a meta tryhard. Let's be honest, it's the best equipment setup, so you should probably just choose that. The only reason why I have this is because I like to live out my 2015 fantasies and pretend that this is good in the game now, but it's not. You don't have to have the stab. You could easily play this tank without stab. Listen, I am playing it like this. You can play it however you like. One thing that I will say is definitely do not ditch the rammer. The rammer needs to stay. The rammer 100% is a must. You should never ever ditch the rammer on this tank. Anything else that you want to play with, go for it. But the rammer, I think we can all agree, is non-negotiable. That thing stays. For the secondary loadout, we are using optics, CVS, and a rammer. Because, as I said, once you get Centurion 7.1, you get 410 base view range. The exact same thing is on this tank. You get 410 base view range. So, that means once you use a setup like this, and you have the field mods as well, you can get 537 meters view range with CVS, meaning that you can just outspot a lot of things. And again, the way that I play this is not to be the light tank. I am not trying to go into a bush and hide. What I am doing is basically only using this really on Prokhorovka or just other maps where I might be able to get away with it. Maybe Muravanka at some stage, who knows. But I play normally. I play on a ridgeline, and then I just play as I would normally, but I spot more things. I don't try and take the light tank's position. That's not how you should play this vehicle, because you're too big, you're too fat, you're not going to fit in a bush that an EBR 105 can fit in. Look at it. It's just not going to happen. So just play this tank normally with this setup, and you will gain spotting. You will gain assistance. And that's how I play these types of tanks. Whenever I'm playing a medium tank and I have CVS like this, it's always the same thing. Just play normally, the spotting will come, because once you do get into a position where you could spot, you then have it there ready. Now for the crew, I'm not going to go into individual perks because it's pretty much the same thing on every single tank, right? You want obviously Brothers in Arms, repairs, maybe concealment if you really want it, but then off-road driving, snapshot, smooth ride, safe stowage, intuition, whatever, right? There's loads, the basic things. It's the same for pretty much every single vehicle. But what I will say is that from the Cavalier, you have 5 crew members, which includes a radio operator. So you would have the commander, gunner, driver, loader, radio operator. And then once you get to the Centurion 1, it then drops the radio operator. That then moves into the loader. And then from there, up until the tier 10, you will then have that crew setup. as you can see right here, which means that you should be able to train up your crew with relative ease moving up through the line. Now for field mods on this vehicle, we are going with left, right, right. Now the first two are obviously just standard what you would use on medium tanks, but then this last one is kind of down to you as a player. Now because of the camo rating on this vehicle, we only get 25 even with the camo right here using the right hand side field mod. If we then choose the left hand side, we only get down to 19, which I don't really feel comfortable with, even though that you get a little bit faster reverse speed. However, the reverse speed, in my opinion, is good enough at 18 that you don't really need this. The only thing that you really need to be worried about is this suspension repair time. Because obviously, if you do this, you do shave off a decent chunk of that repair time. So it's up to you, but I would choose the right-hand side. For number 7, I choose the right-hand side, although you could pick none or even pick the left-hand side. What this does is it will decrease your view range or increase your view range at the cost of your top speed. So if you didn't choose any, you would have a 55 km/h top speed tank with whatever view range you have. If you then choose the right-hand side, you would have a 53 km/h top speed tank with a little bit more view range, 3% to be exact. If you choose the left-hand side, you would then have a 57 km/h top speed tank, but with less view range than you already have. So I like to just choose the right hand side. The thing is, I don't really notice that 2 km/h difference. I would notice more if it was maybe specific power to weight, but for just top speed, I don't really mind losing a little bit for gaining more view range, especially if I do use CVS, just to boost that view range up even further. And then for number 8, no brainer. Suspension durability all the way. Get that track health as good as you can get it, especially if you do use hardening, because that will then boost your track health up even more. Now for the ammunition loadout, I'm not going to lie to you, it doesn't really matter on this. I include it just because people like to see what I use. Depending on the day, honestly, I might choose something like this. I might choose, you know, a little bit less HE. You know, it really depends. At the moment, I'm choosing this. Honestly, it doesn't matter. Either way, let's go ahead and take a look at some gameplay with the Centurion Action 10 to see what it's all about in game and whether or not it was worth all of that grinding to go ahead and get. So you go ahead and join me on Oyster Bay, which is quite a rare map that I have a replay on because usually I don't have that great games on this map, to be honest, but we'll have to see in this one. As you can see, not going super fast, obviously 53 compared to the 55. We've already spoken about how the field mod, you could change it to be, you know, depending on what one you want. But as you can see, very, very nice. We're using the same setup as we were with Vents, Remmer, and Stab. This SDB, one of the luckiest SDBs I've ever met. He is, I mean, he's better than me. He survived 2 shots. I never knew the STB had this much armor. But there we go. But as you can see, we're spotting this early on. We get into the position. We do the spotting. We can then back off. We can play this kind of peekaboo role where we hopefully don't take too many shots in return. And we can just, I mean, punish people for making dumb decisions like the 50 TP prototype right there. But right now, all that we need to do is just play this kind of, this ridgeline roll. Ammo rack, lovely. We love to see it. That's the classic feature of this tank. But all we need to do is just keep trying to peek this bush. And again, I cannot show anything. But keep peeking this. We are in the cover, shooting this list as well as he goes back. The gun is accurate enough to allow us to do these shots, these little peekaboo shots. We are getting quite lucky because even though that this STB is trying to shoot us, we're not very well hidden against the STB. And now I finally realise, okay, my brain activates a little bit more. And then we go into the bush and we hide a little bit more. But not a lot's going to happen. And by the way, this spot right here is super nice because a lot of people will go out to this kind of area like the STB's done. And they think that they're safe behind all the little like ridges and everything else, and you get into this position and you're so much safer than them because if you look behind me, there's all of this to just go back to, right? You have all of this behind you ready and your team's starting to push forwards now. I think I'll do a few blind shots here just to try and get shots at the SDB if he's still around, but to no avail. So Yeah, but I mean, my T10 is... He's gaming. I guess you could call it gaming. Yeah, he's definitely gaming. Definitely gaming. And then a few blind shots later that do not do anything. We are back to a stalemate of... I mean, it's 2 to 6. So we're 2,600 health down. I mean, it's looking okay over this side of the map. It's definitely not too bad. But over the other side, if you pay attention, it's not looking very good. We are definitely not gaming right now over the other side of the map. Like, we have managed to lose everything over the other side. I mean, we have a, what is that, Object 590 over the other side that's pushing forwards. And what even is, what's that? A 53 TP, I think? So, yeah, the thing is, we could go around and try and reinforce back there. But I want to try and get rid of these people here. I also, in this game, I've done a little bit of a different ammo loadout, so we took a little bit more heat. It doesn't really make too much of a difference. You can just pick whatever you want, as I said. But I was kind of hoping that the Kunze-Panzer could deal with the STB. It doesn't really work out that way. And my E4 has made a big mistake of going through the middle of the... I don't really know what you would call that. But BZ68, make sure we put one into him. We need to try and kill him as well. Probably going to be 2 shots. You get a lucky fire. But again, I don't really understand what the BZ was doing. I mean, I guess he was trying to just chase the G-Saw. But once he saw me, he should have spun off to the right to then go and hide rather than keep pushing, because he knew that that's not going to end well, surely. Again, I don't know what's going on with this SDRVK. There are a lot of gamers in this game, it seems. But they really want the E4. And I know that if I put 1 shell into him, we can then put him down to a 1-shot for the E4, and he's probably going to survive. We don't have shots at the Lear PTA, though, because, well, there's a big old mound in the way. Unfortunately, the Kunze-Panzer did not survive, and now I have been bamboozled, surprise attacked by a charioteer, which we make sure we give him the good hash rounds, which I'm sure he's very much enjoying. And then I make this lovely shot into his cupola, realizing that I'm still firing HE, and then I do this. What am I doing? Like, seriously, what am I doing at this point? We then get ammo racked. I should be dead, but seriously, my brain doesn't work sometimes. I'm telling you, it literally doesn't work, right? I should be dead, right? But since I'm not dead, you get to watch this replay, so it's all good in the end. STB finally dies, thank God. Honestly, the STB was probably the biggest issue for us. From this point, it's a little bit more even. It's definitely not dead even. They are having the upper hand with 1 tank and also 1,700 that I can see at the moment. I don't know the health of the Jagdpanzer because he's all over the other side, unspotted, so he could have taken some damage, but I just wouldn't know. But as you can see, Lear PTA makes a mistake, G-Saw's ready, we're now all even, and they start to cap. Now, I'm pretty sure the G-Saw 1010 is going to come around this way, which is why I'm trying to hide this. And as you can see, I actually got into this bit here. I was going to say because maybe then I can be hidden, but I don't actually know. I don't think my brain was still working actually at this point. Oh, I'm such an idiot. What? Hang on. What did I hope to achieve there? Genuinely, I have no idea. Jagdpanzer 100 pushing. I can't take a shot from him. I'm going to be killed no matter what. He could load HE and kill me. So I'm just waiting. If he pushes forwards, I'll try and track him. But I'm fully aware that if he is using hardening, which I didn't see at the time, whether he was or wasn't, even with the field mods, he's going to take 1 shot to the tracks, just absorb it. So I know that I'm probably going to have to put 2 in if I want to actually track him. But this Jagdpanzer player, I'm not going to ruin anything for you. But he's a magician. Because he's disappeared. He has, I don't know. And then I have another, Listen, I cannot explain the way that my brain works sometimes, okay? But it doesn't work at all. Brain was on full capacity here, though. I load HE, thinking SU is going to come around behind us. Well done, Max. That's the first smart thing you've done in this game. And then we need to try and get rid of this too. And I'm thinking, okay, well, the main problem is the Jagdpanzer. If I can try and kill the 53 TP, then get him out the game. But we're all on a one-shot. You know, we have 427 hit points between the three of us. They have 1,900, albeit between the two of them, and most of it is on one tank. So it's a little bit annoying. But again, playing the ridgeline, just peeking up. Where is he going? What is he doing? What? So after a fantastic game of Water Tanks and my brain firing on whatever brain cells I have remaining, we get nearly 6,000 damage, 2.2k assistance, mastery, lovely, very, very nice. And we even made profit. I mean, we did have a personal reserve on, but yeah, not bad. So first things first, how do I rate the Centurion Action 10? Well, it's going to be the first 10 out of 10 vehicle that I give, because this thing is insanely good fun. It's just flexible. It's good. Any word you can think of to describe good is this vehicle. It is exceptional. The only bad thing about it is obviously the ammo rack. But if you used a directive and even done safe stowage as well, you could then forego some of that from happening. So if you can get around that, the tank is just beautiful. So a 10 out of 10 for this vehicle, because I do think it is one of the best tanks at tier 10 for mediums. But is the entire line worth the grind? The title of this video and why you've all clicked on it. Is it worth grinding from the tier 1 or whatever tier you start at through the line to get to this vehicle? And I'll say yes, because I think the line as a whole is a pretty damn good line to start out in World of Tanks. It will teach you everything you need to know about medium tanks. The doesn't really have armor, has a good enough mobility, and that peekaboo flexibility as well. So is it worth it? Yes, I think so. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you all in the next one.